Hold it! Stay right there. What are you waiting for? Kill them! Kill them both! No, wait a minute. Is it money you're after? I'll give you as much as you want.
May the saints forgive you, because I won't.
Hey, you're listening to another episode of Threshold Saints. This is Jin the Ninja, and enjoy the show.
Hey, Pig Lice, what's up?
What's up, man? Jin. Yeah. Pig Lice is fine. Is that what you go by, Jin? Like on everything?
Jin. Yeah, on everything, like Insta.
Okay.
Obviously Twitter, the show. It's all my stuff, and my link tree, obviously too. So
Nice. Okay.
So Pig Lice is okay for you?
Yeah, that's fine. That's good.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Pig Lice, why don't you introduce yourself, give a little bit of your background, whatever you want to say. You're an amazing comic artist, you're an amazing game artist. You have tons of links, which I'll include in the show notes. And just say your history as an artist and what kind of games you're doing and what projects you're working on.
Awesome. Yeah. I got started with drawing, inspired by comics for the most part. A lot of stuff that was coming out from Image Comics, specifically like anything written by Rick Remender. I really liked the How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way book. I liked a lot. I liked reading about Jack Kirby. I think I got into it because of the work ethic involved in comics. The work ethic in that is insane, and it's something that I do not have. I just do not have, not the work ethic. I have the work ethic. I don't have the mental capacity for it. So I have sort of switched over to game art, mostly because that's just what I really enjoy as well. I kind of wanted to do comics. I thought it would be a cool thing to be able to be oh, I can do comics, but it's really fucking hard. And I don't really love it as much as just plain video game art, making assets, making characters, making backgrounds, boom, done. It's in there. I like that. And I have more fun with games than I do comics. So, but yeah, it was definitely for the first few years I was trying to do art. I was definitely trying to be a comic book artist, but not quite for me. So yeah.
Well, you know what? Nobody knows this, but actually, someone does this. Megan from 7 Degrees of Wisdom and I had a discussion about this. But the name of my show was a graphic novel that I wrote, did not illustrate because I can't really draw. But my friend who went to art school illustrated it, and we tried to kind of sell it for a couple of years. So that's really interesting that you say that, and I'm kind of the same way in the sense that I totally get what you're saying regarding comic book art because it is very focus intensive. So I can.
It's so difficult. I mean, you're designing one page, and that page is 4 to 7 shots. That you have to really think about. The lighting, the positioning, the text, where the text is going to go, what they're saying. And there's just so much thinking that's involved in that. It's very difficult for people to meet deadlines on it. It's just a very hard thing.
As we know, it's an industry with a lot of burnout. So it totally makes sense to me what you're saying. And just and I also loved Image Comics, especially as a younger kid and a lot of the properties from that. And I'm thinking, Witchblade was an Image comic, wasn't it? I believe it was.
Which one?
I really loved Witchblade. Are you familiar with that? That's probably before your
Witchblade.
time.
think that was Wildstorm. Witchblade was Wildstorm.
Wildstorm. That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
Witchblade was fucking awesome. That was definitely one of the first, like, yeah, man. That stuff's great. The stuff by forget his name, but he did, you know, a lot of the like Uncanny X-Force and
Yes.
did yeah, he did a bunch of stuff. Yeah, he's great. Witchblade's awesome. Yeah, that like 90s comic book art is amazing.
No, I totally agree, and it was definitely a little. I don't know if it's edgier now or not edgier. It feels very. I don't know. It's not as cool in my opinion, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, a little dated.
Yeah, there's something like a little. I don't know. It's just like comics now. It doesn't feel. It's not as gripping. And it doesn't like draw me in nearly as much, where the art was just at that time, especially for Image, felt like very like wow. And obviously Todd McFarlane is like such a superstar, and you know, all his works and all the stuff that they did.
Yeah, Mark Silvestri is who did Witchblade. I believe he's the one that came up with Witchblade. He's the owner of Image right now. Yeah, and he's awesome. I mean, his stuff, he's improved a lot since what he did with like X-Force and all those old 90s books. Like he's continued to just get like crazy good. That stuff's amazing. Yeah, the amount of like just work that goes into comics and everything is just very, very like inspiring. But I haven't followed it in quite a while. You know, I think that kind of video games are a little bit more fun because they are just like, I don't know, I like they're just a world. Every video game that gets put out is its own little world that you can like hop in and look at. You know, I don't think very much on it on video games or anything else behind it other than just what I'm looking at. And you know, like I'm replaying Baldurs Gate II right now slowly, and it's just amazing the world that they made. You know, that isometric stuff.
Immersive. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, very, very immersive. Yeah, like just purely visually, it's amazing. You know, you can make your character run around. You could like make your character look different. That's the thing that I really like. I know that's what a lot of people like with video games, is being able to just like make your character look how you want them to look. Lots of customization and stuff. World of Warcraft would probably be my favorite game, as cheesy as that is, because there's just so much customization in it. You can just play dress up all day. That's what I really, really like. You know, as like lame as that is, that's all I really care about with video games or art in general, is like dress up in a video game.
I don't think that's lame at all. Like I played WoW like a long time ago, but
Yeah.
I also you know, for a moment that game was crazy fun, and it was very interesting to play with other people that you didn't know, because I'm like a solo gamer. Growing up, I didn't play with like many other people, but definitely that was my first like you know, world RPG. And yeah, I think that's really cool.
It like sucked you in, didn't it? Like you just lived in it for a little bit.
You had to, because the character was kind of an extension of who you were, right? Because like we all like exactly what you're saying, we customize, we would, you know, as much as you could obviously in WoW, because you would like do set optimization, all that stuff, but you could choose your race, you could choose your class, and you know, so there's something very cool about it.
Yeah, I don't know when the last time you played it, but they've added like in for quite a while now, they've had this thing called transmog in it, which is that you can like have a set of armor that's really good and it like has good stats and whatever, but then you can make it look like whatever you've collected. You can make each piece look like whatever you want that you've collected before. So that doesn't matter. You can just look however you want. I think that's fucking amazing. Like that stuff is really what I care about. Like when I was about 10 years old, my mom was playing World of Warcraft and she'd pass me the concept art books. and I would just be out doing chores. I'd be like mowing the lawn, raking leaves, doing stuff outside, and all day I would just be thinking about like, oh, what if there was this kind of armor or this kind of armor that's not in the game? And I'd be, doing really garbage 10-year-old drawings of it, That's what I really like, is just kind of fantasizing about, and that's what my art that you see is just, infinite customization. That's just like my fantasy. That's like what I would like to give people as much as possible, is just something where they've got, just a bragging thing of like, oh, there's a million combinations, of
No.
armor, whatever. That stuff's so fun to me. That's all I really care about.
No, I totally get that. I did play when they had transmog, and it gives you an excuse to go play through all like the level 60 content that nobody's doing anymore, and you get like the crazy armor, and that was the best stuff because it was kind of weird and cool at the same time, and like the colors were insane. So yeah, I totally feel you on that.
Yeah, man, it's super fun. Yeah, just like, I also like, mixing things. I like the game Fortnite visually because it just mixes a bunch of things. There's you could play as Peter Griffin, and then you're shooting, Shredder from Ninja Turtles in the head. It's ridiculous, or you could have a sword and be, cutting up just stormtroopers or something. That's fun, mixing stuff and combining things for as many possible combinations. I love that, and I don't see a lot of games that have like a super big focus on it. Even stuff that has a lot, like even stuff that like Elden Ring is a game with just or the Dark Souls games are games with like tons of like items and stuff, but it's not really focused on like, how the character wants to look or whatever, because they don't have like a transmog system or whatever. But I don't know. I look up. I try to find decent like 2D character creators, and I don't really find a lot of stuff that's like that good. I feel like World of Warcraft has the best like range of customization and visual variety. Like World of Warcraft has the most of that out of anything.
I think the thing that made WoW cool was that you had such a range of like your gameplay experiences could be very different. You could do starting off in different zones, and like you had the cultural sort of components to like the racial choices as well as the class choices.
Yeah.
So I think you're totally right with that, and obviously season gear, like this is true pretty universally, not just for WoW, but it changes per season, so you kind of get an updated look every time, and it kind of goes with the concept of the expansion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dude, just that stuff's so cool. Just seeing it get updated, seeing it get added to every couple months, it's amazing. Let me ask you, like, do you have anything that you just get absorbed into just looking at, like, oh, that is beautiful artwork, that's a cool setting, whatever it is, like maybe the like certain painters like Frank Frazetta, Conan stuff, is there something like that for you where you just hey, let me go look at this for a while, this looks cool?
Well, everybody knows I'm a big weeb, and I do love manga. I do love JRPGs. I will say I also love comic books. Like I am a big, actually, like I did read Conan, and I had an uncle give me like he had the entire, or at least like 600. I can't even think. He had like 600 copies. He gave me like from 1 till 600 of the Conan series, and it was
That's awesome.
really,
That's so sick.
and so I didn't really get Conan when he gave them to me. Like I was kind of like, this is like kind of weird. It's kind of like, like this huge dude who doesn't really like, Conan wasn't, that's actually not true. Conan did have like actually quite intense and deep thinking, but he was a man of few words. So sometimes when you're a kid, I think that you're reading it and you're like, it feels light story wise, but then once you're really in the Conan like universe, it's not light. It's really not. There's actually like a metaphysics. There's a whole kind of cosmology there.
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question, so something I think about a lot, I obviously love Nier Automata. I love Xenoblade 1 and 2. I think those are really beautiful games. I think like just
Yeah.
I love the worlds, and I love like the the creatures and the I just feel like there's something immersive. I think we're on the same page with that. Like I like an immersive game. I like something beautiful, something very aesthetic to look at.
Yeah, Xenoblade's amazing. That's like one of those things. There are a couple sort of Asian products that I've like really. I'm like, why do I like looking at that? Because like there's a lot of it looks the same, but then there's something like Xenoblade or Final Fantasy where it's like, well, something about this really makes me want to look at it forever. Xenoblade's awesome. I love Xenoblade. I
Okay,
haven't gotten
I'm glad you approve of that.
I haven't gotten to play it very much, but I used to actually like in high school. I would go over to my friend's house and we'd smoke weed, and I would just watch him play Xenoblade for like hours, because it was just cool to look at. It's fucking awesome. Yeah. And that's another thing is like I don't know what's going on in anything. Like I don't know the lore behind anything. I can just like in World of Warcraft, I don't know what the orcs are doing or where they're come from. But I go into like a zone that's like orc themed, and I'm just paying attention to like how much effort went into like visually like adding character to these like this faction or that faction. That's the same with the Xenoblade. I have no idea what's going on. I just know it looks awesome.
I'm the same way, kind of. Like I played Dragon Quest, I played like Persona, I played like Shin Megami Tensei. Like I've played like basically all the all the JRPG games. I'm not a huge lore person. Like, yes, in the kind of like in the moment I'm into it, but I don't.
Yeah.
It's not like I remember. I don't think about it afterwards. I'm more like you, is that the visual is more important for me, so I carry that with me after.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with you. So what games, I know you've said like quite a few, but what other games, or were there, I noticed like you have like kind of a very like classic D&D element, like there's an element of that in your work. Would you agree with that?
Classic D&D. What do you mean by that? I don't.
Well, I find your characters very like, you do like classes, and you do kind of like, they're very, it feels like very classic, like just clean, and you have kind of the more traditional classes, and also obviously you do like a wide range of characters. I'm not trying to say that it's limited, but there's
I
classic
do.
to it.
Yeah, I do. The classes. Yeah, I see what you mean. Like, that is what I'm making. I'm making basically in Photoshop. I just have these like dress up dolls that I just continually add to. I add different shoulder pads, different arms, different heads, different shoes too, and shit. But I have them all. I have different files for each class that I make up, and I'm trying to actually be like very selective about which classes I put into this, because I don't every single thing that I like, I think personally, just totally selfishly, is made worse by adding like a fucking mage or like priest or wizard or magic person or anything. Like even like Conan Exiles. I love Conan, love that. But then there's some wizards, and I'm like, God, get the fuck out of here. I don't like that. I don't like magic. I just like the warriors. I like troopers. I like boxers, like melee dudes who are just like, I don't like. I'm just very selective about what I'm adding. I'm making like a rig for a samurai right now, and that's going to be like its own pose with new items and its own customization. I've got a couple more on the list. I've got a mech suit that I've been slowly working on that I have not shown off at all, because I want it to look really good and have a lot more before I show it off. I've got like an agent who's just like a dude with a Glock. The most magical class that I'm going to do is just like a mutant class, which is going to have just like lots of sort of like, a claw hand, a lot of like physical mutations and stuff. That's going to be the most like non-traditional class that I do. Yeah, it's just, I just like very simple melee stuff. very, very like cliche. I'm not exactly sure how to explain that. I just don't like the wizards. I don't like the robes. No robes. No, none of that. None of that in my stuff. No, thank you.
Well, I think I might surprise you in this and other people who are listening is that I actually, even though I usually do play healer, like I'm telling on myself a little bit, but
Yeah.
I usually do it because it's easy to group with people if you're playing like a MMORPG or whatever. It's just easy, to do that, and then you kind of have an in like a faster queue time. But I actually really like a melee character. I think that's very classic. I feel that's very like Sega Genesis or like Neo Geo, like Samurai Showdown. Like, yeah, maybe people have like a move or two, a special move that's like sort of magical, but then it's a fighting game. It's just like or action
Yeah.
RPG
Yeah, like
or a
taking
scroll.
I really like stripping things down a lot. Like have you heard of a game called Bushido? It's like a PS1 game or PS2.
Yeah, yes, I have.
Fucking amazing game. Like, and why is it amazing? Because it's so simple. There's no magic extra bullshit. No, you cut a dude's hand off and he's probably dead. Like it's just like that quick. And it's just the boiled down, like sword fighting. It's like that's perfect. I mean, I think that's why I like Conan Exiles so much is it is, even though I do like a large variety of things, at the same time, I really like when a team of artists or whatever just picks a focus and they're like, all right, we're gonna just do this is swords in the sand. This is swords and sandals. That's what we're doing for the most part. And then everything that we make that sort of branches out of that still stays pretty close to that. I think that's awesome. Like they're not focused on adding everything into their thing. And I do think that that's a big problem with games in general. It's like they have to add everything to cater to everyone, and that's very, very annoying sometimes.
No, I totally agree with you. I think this. I'm very like I do love it. The thing with Magic is that when you add it to a game, you have to, as completely sort of change the physics, or at least how the physics are perceived for the other characters in the game, and it really changes the balance of everything. It can really disrupt. Like, usually they're kind of new characters, like nukes. So there's an advantage to being a mage often in gaming. So I feel like there is a melee. It keeps it clean. It keeps it balanced. It keeps it and also keeps the plot straightforward. You don't require all these things. And interestingly enough, I think classic games would always put the wizard as kind of as the villain. So I mean,
Right.
it
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense,
yeah.
right? A hero as a sword, like a melee sword guy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And also, I think purely visually, again, I remember being very young and watching my mom play EverQuest II, and I just remember I would just watch her play it and go through different areas and fight stuff and loot stuff, and she would go on these big raids with her friends online, and I just remember paying attention to how she would go into a dungeon, there'd be 5 or 6 other players with her, and they'd start fighting the boss, or they'd start fighting a wave of monsters, and all of a sudden all these magic spells are fucking clogging the screen, and it's like, well, this is annoying, because just visually it's like, well, you spend all this time to make your character look cool, but then you go into a fight where they look the coolest because they're fighting, but then you can't see anything because there's all this fucking magic everywhere. So it's annoying. No, I just that always stuck with me. I was like, just kind of strip things down and just show, just show simple combat, just show your character in a full range of motion. I would love to do a lot of animation for my characters at some point. As of now, I have not been designing them to be for that, but yeah.
Well, I think that it makes sense though, because people are kind of doing there's a lot of the 2D scrollers are very popular. I don't play Steam or any of those kind of things, but those are popular games, right? Like when you look at all the review sites and all that, people love that. People are looking for a more pared down experience, because I think the visual input can be, like you said, it's very overwhelming. And Yeah, and it like causes a lot of lag. And it's also like min maxing. I think people are kind of over that, like meta play, where they like have the best armor and you do this combination only, and yeah,
Totally.
that can be
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, people are more into the roguelite stuff is sort of an example of that. Like that becoming such a big thing is like, I just want to like upgrade stuff for a little bit to, reach a cool combo, but then I want to start over and do it over again.
Yeah,
It's not such a long-term like grinding for stats. Yeah, I think those people are just playing RuneScape at this point, probably.
no, that's probably true. I think that I think that gaming has like kind of peaked in a way, not peaked as in like it cannot grow. I mean peaked as in like they've done all they can do with these like massive open worlds. They've done all they can do with all the different classes and all the inclusion and all the making sure that everyone feels like they have a place in the game. Whereas like I know when I'm growing up, I'm a little older than you, that you didn't have very many options. It was like maybe you could choose
Right.
multiple characters, maybe only in fighting games, really. So you would pick one, but it wasn't like endless option. And I think the thing is like you can do I love the idea of character customization. It's not to diminish that, but I think that there's like the other thing where you kind of pick a character that's already has an
Yeah.
identity. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
for
then
sure.
play that identity in the game rather than you are in the game.
Right, for sure, yeah. I think no, I don't, I'm very hopeful about video games in general because of stuff like Helldivers 2 coming out and how well that does. I feel like stuff is changing to where people are seeing that like what a developer actually wants to make, what a group of artists actually wants to make, is what will do the best. Because Helldivers 2 is just a pure like we're just gonna do a Starship Troopers type thing and we're just going to do that really well. And then it does really well. We're not going to add in a bunch of shit. We're not going to, and then we're going to have we're going to have one guy writing it. I know they have like one guy who's in charge of kind of where the story heads and everything. I think that's awesome. I think that does really, really well.
I'm a little bit familiar with Helldivers 2 actually, and it's because I used to love Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
And for the record, it is a parody, but it is a interesting, complicated parody. It's not just like it's not one dimensional, it's multi-dimensional. So, it's just to preface that whole discourse that happened about Starship Troopers. But
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's a great game. I think it's really fun. And yeah, I think that is what's cool. I think that's what makes games cool is storytelling. This like element of like someone's writing it, it's their story, it's maybe imperfect and like not for everybody, but that's okay. Games don't
Right.
have to be for everybody. It can be, but that's what I think gamers, like from what I see online and what people like seem to respond to, I do think that people are hungry for that, are kind
Yeah.
of hungry for that experience of like
Yeah. Yeah. Hungry for getting to experience something that the person making it was excited to make.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a big part of gaming now, like what people are really anticipating. And I love that about your work because there is like also a hunger for that kind of retro gaming. And I feel like there is this whole generation that never really experienced it.
Yeah.
Whereas like my generation, we had quite a lot of it. Like if you played Final Fantasy, all the Final Fantasies, like I started at Final Fantasy 4. So
Yeah.
we did, I played it as more of like a 2D game. So,
Right.
so I feel like that's a really cool niche. And I feel like also the narrative gaming, and not that they can't work together because obviously they do, but that's very cool as well.
Yeah.
I'm very hopeful for gaming too.
Yeah, I also I'm not very, I know people really hate like microtransactions and stuff, but I kind of like that some, not all, but yeah, I like that some of these game studios can release a game and then be set to work on it for the next like 15 years. like Final Fantasy 14. I think that's the MMO, the most recent MMO, Realm Reborn. They're just now updating their graphics, like complete graphics overhaul on the whole game, because they're like, hey, this is done pretty well. There's no reason for us to make a new Final Fantasy MMO. Let's just keep working on this one for the next 15 years. So we're going to update the graphics and set it up for that. I think that's awesome. Like, I love that. I'm not negative about that at all. If they need some microtransactions to like pull that off, sweet. You're just going to continue to build a world for the next 20 years. Awesome.
I'm with you. I'm like, whatever, they need to do to, like, I love the idea of the continuity. Like, you play because this, if you play an MMORPG, you're invested in it, whether it's financially or emotionally, usually both. And so it is disappointing when obviously a game dies. So
right.
it's
yeah.
And people, right? So I think that it's better that they have a continuity, continue developing, continue refining, treating it as like a ongoing project. I think I agree with you. Totally cool.
Yeah,
and
that's yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say, like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do with the FightDaily thing. Is this project is just something that I'm trying to set it up in a way that I can work on it forever. If my art style gets better, if I'm able to like make assets in a much better updated way that makes the old stuff look like trash, it's still going to be okay, because I know that it's still going to work with what I have. And if I'm able to ever pull in more artists to help me with assets, I know that I'm going to be able to, like, I'm going to have a set guideline on how to make stuff for it. And that's kind of my plan, is to just make something that I can work on for 20 years, 30 years.
Okay, well, that is really cool. So why don't you talk a little bit about FightDaily world building and what sort of like your vision is, more than that?
Yeah, basically it's a world of like action figures that have come to life. There's Pig World and Meat World. Pig World are all the good guy action figures. Meat World are these ones that have become, their AI consciousness has like turned evil, and so they start making themselves instead of humans making them. They start just producing themselves, making their own like factories, and they like, just, there's a lot of, they're just the bad guys of it. But yeah, they're all super customizable. There can be, skeleton, cyclops, fucking, soldiers with assault rifles. There could be, it's just as many things as I can think of that would fit go into FightDaily. It's just a world of action figures. It's definitely, like, the narrative that I have for it is definitely inspired by like small soldiers and stuff like that. Just action figures coming to life. But I like the idea that they don't actually affect humanity in any way. Even though these Meat World figures have become evil and sentient bad guys, they don't affect humans in any way. They're so small. They're just little tiny action figures. They're just fighting each other, and humans just kind of go about doing whatever they do. They set up, little territories in different like parks and backyards and national forests. They build their own like play sets that are themed around whatever they are. So like the skeleton samurai will all sort of, those figures will all sort of like come together and form their own faction, and they'll build own themed samurai shit out in the woods, and that'll be their little spot. And then they'll go to war with the neighboring group that is, I don't know, dog warriors or some shit. That's like, and I like the idea of just all these like battles going on in the real world between just little action figures. And sometimes the police will get like a noise complaint, and so they'll have like a janitor just like knock down a play set and tell the fucking action figures to fuck off, and they'll go start again somewhere else. I don't know. That's how I would like to treat it.
That sounds amazing. Really cool. I love it already. Like everything you described is just exactly the game I want to play. Now, I will ask you a question about pay to win versus microtransactions. Is there a difference? And if
Um,
so, expand on it.
yeah, I don't want anything that I don't want the cosmetics of anything to have anything to do with the gameplay. So if at one point I do probably like a DLC that comes with new skins and new customizable items, options, whatever, it's just going to be cosmetic. It's just going to be a cosmetic plugin that people can mess with, but it's not going to have anything to do with the gameplay at all. And the gameplay is going to be very, very simple roguelite mechanics, similar to like Darkest Dungeon without all the like negative debuffs and stuff. That's what we're making. But the first step is finishing our first draft of the character creator. The character creator on its own is the real like game that we're planning on people having the most fun with. Is you'll be able to change your class, and each class has its own customization options. Right now, we have 3 classes set up and rigged, and those are the warrior, which has like a sword and shield, the trooper has an assault rifle, and then the boxer, boxing gloves. So the first step is just the character creator, and that's where we're putting like most of our energy into. We're not really trying to make the best video game. As long as people have fun making stuff in it, that's like the goal.
No, I think that's really cool. I think it's great to hear, like, you can tell how passionate you are about it. I think that makes me hopeful for games, just hearing you and like how excited you are for your own project, but also for other people's like project. And when when you're able to like say it's like this game or like this game, I think that's a kind of excitement for what else is going on contemporaneously or contemporaneous.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I see a ton of stuff that I just really love. Like like gameplay wise, I love the auto chess thing that kind of came out and got popular for like 2 years ago. Do you remember that? The auto chess stuff like Dota Underlords?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
It's just fields of like you just field units, you just buy units from a shop, they fight each other automatically without you doing anything. Then the round ends, then you try to buy more stuff for them, try to buy more units, try to like figure out a strategy. They all have their own like it's a game format that's very similar to like roguelite stuff. It is a roguelite, but it's multiplayer, and it's just like so customizable. Like the gameplay options and mechanics are very customizable. The developers could like add a different faction that has different abilities. So you buy these units and pair them together, and they do different things, and that's so fun. Like the actual gameplay mechanics being, I look at a lot of that stuff, and I'm very, very inspired by that stuff. I try to like keep my eye on a lot of things and try to find stuff that is awesome to me. I really like that, these survival games where you're building a base and trying to defend it and stuff. I love that. Like that's way more immersive than an MMO. You're actually carving out a little piece of land for yourself and like building a building the way you want it to look on top of your character, and then going out trying to defend it. That's fucking awesome.
No, I totally agree with you. And there's something very kind of real world materialist about that. I think for right now in the last like 4 years, I think people really kind of identify with that and feel like that.
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
Yeah, that's true.
Let me ask you a little bit of like a harder question. Maybe not harder, but it's sort of the opposite. Are there any games that you think in the last like 3 or 4 years that you were really excited for, but were really a letdown?
That is a hard question because I'm very easily impressed. Something can suck, and I'll be like, but that's really cool. Shoot.
Okay, well, what's the game you really dislike?
game I really dislike. All the Dark Souls games except for Elden Ring. They're just too dark, and it's just visual. It's just like, yeah, I don't want to be here. This is gross. Look at these fucking monsters. These are disgusting. I hate Dark Souls.
Yeah, that was a great answer, and I know I kind of threw you a curveball, but I think it's interesting because I think you're very, from what I understand, is very visual, and I am also very visual. So for me, like, I'm not a big Dark Souls fan, but I was more of a gameplay thing. Like,
Yeah.
but I agree with you. I think that there is, like, because I even said, like, oh, I like Xenoblade. I like these other games that are kind of like, Frontier Saga. I like that kind of luminous, hand-drawn quality to games. So Dark Souls, I'm definitely not the demographic for that.
Yeah, yeah. Have you seen that clip of Miyazaki being shown this like AI 3D model thing that these like college students did?
Yes, I am familiar with
Oh,
that clip.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Like that's how I feel when I see just some creepy stuff. Like Dark Souls, all those games are like wow, you guys put a lot of effort into this. You're very skilled at making this disgusting, horrific looking stuff. Something's wrong with you. Like I don't like this. Why would you want to put a person in this? That's like I'm not sure exactly what Miyazaki said in that, but he was like he just saw this like gross figure crawling around that this college student worked his ass off on, and it was just this like fleshy monster. And then Miyazaki was like just shown like drawing, and he's just like, I strongly feel that humanity is losing faith in itself. Like that shit was so funny and very, very relatable when I see stuff like that.
No, I agree with you, and I think there is kind of like I think we're moving out of it now. This kind of like dark. It's kind of like a pessimism in gaming, and kind of like I'm okay with violence, and I'm definitely okay with even gaming ultra violence, depending on what kind of game it is. But I do think that we're moving away from that, and I think we're moving towards like more of a camp, fun violence, like where violence is cool and it's more about like the effects. It's not so much about the darkness, about the emotionality of it. So I agree
Yeah,
with you, and I agree with Miyazaki. We there is something very like sinister about doing like this kind of AI, like, but not just using AI, but it's using AI to like create like very sinister things. There is
right.
something very weird, like, disturbing about that.
Yeah, have you seen any of the Saw movies?
Yes.
Maybe I am just a total pussy and I'm just like a weird like Protestant person, but I just like I see stuff like Saw. I know to most people who watch horror stuff and creepy stuff, they're like, oh, Saw's nothing. But I just see stuff like Saw and I'm just like, who comes up with this and where can we find them and put them in a cell? Like they need put away. Like what are you doing? What are you doing making this? I definitely feel like very strongly about that type of thing. Like I saw like half of the most recent Saw. I'm not sure which one it was. I think it was the one with like Chris Tucker or something, but it was just horrendous.
I actually do not like those kinds of movies. I do like Japanese horror, and I do like J horror can obviously get very it's kind of over the top, like
Yeah.
it's almost has a camp quality with the blood spray and stuff. But I agree that there is a line where it can be too sicko. Saw to me is just 100% sicko shit. Like, I'm not about it. I'm not gonna watch it. Like, I'm just not. That's not in. I don't want to have that in my mind. I already have crazy dreams. I don't need like that
Right.
extraneous layer, right?
On the other hand, what do you think about zombie stuff?
So I still love zombies. I know they're kind of passe now, but I do like. I mean, the idea of zombies is fucking cool. I mean,
I
it
love,
just is.
I love zombie shit. Like I cannot get enough of that. I'm very upset that I think I've watched every good zombie show. And I can't find any more that are good. I love
What is
zombies.
the best zombie show?
I'm sorry, but Walking Dead for like the most of it. Like I feel like it painted a pretty dang good picture of like how humans would react emotionally and like physically to the zombie apocalypse. I thought it was pretty like accurate.
You know, that show is very polarizing, so I don't really have a true, like, this is very typical of me, is I don't have like a strong opinion either way. But I understand, I totally agree with you and what you're saying. I think that it dealt with the human drama very well. Now, I do like, maybe I'm just like a crypto ADD and I just need like a lot of action in things that I watch, or a lot of like stimulus. But it sometimes it would lose me because I found it like a little boring, but maybe that's more a reflection of me than the show itself.
No, I definitely just, I liked the scenes where they're just kicking ass and just shooting a bunch of zombies. No, that's my favorite part, but I feel like I'm not saying it's Walking Dead is super realistic, but I think it's the most realistic of any zombie show I've seen. Like the most, at least for the first 4 seasons, it was trying to be. It was trying to be pretty like, like when a character would like go into a house, you just like felt like the pressure of it, but the person's there to like, get supplies and they're trying to get out, and it's just like the intensity of just that little thing. Black Summer's also really good. Have you seen that?
I have not seen that one. So
that's a really good one. It's pretty like intense. And it's got like running zombies, which always scare the shit out of me. But
I do my runners.
Yeah, The Kingdom. I think it's called The Kingdom, or just Kingdom. Have you seen that medieval like Korean zombie show?
Yes, I'm actually a big fan of the Korean zombie genre, I guess, or subgenre. I think that they do zombies very well.
Yeah, dude. Yeah,
no, I didn't see that one.
That one was very, very good. Yeah, it's just like super fun. I've read a little bit about like what people think zombie apocalypse stuff is, like why people like it so much, and I do agree that it's like the ultimate like escapism for people. Like people are like under pressure from their jobs and paying bills and and just surviving, and they just want sort of a what if scenario if they didn't have to go to work the next day. Like
100%.
I think that is what it is, and I it's really weird, but like I feel like zombie stuff is like perfect like adult escapism. Like like it would just be great if I could just go out and like yeah.
Well, it's very primal, right? Like it's very like it fills a lot of needs. It's like there's something kind of like there's a catharsis in violence, right? I mean, that's just true. And there's also catharsis in this idea of like the millenarian sort of like the apocalypse, the world has ended. So now who am I? Like, what am I without all the aesthetic trappings that I think I am? But I've lost all of that now. So who am I? Am I the hero? Am I a villain?
It doesn't like that whole thing just does not get boring to me at all. The zombie thing. Like I hope I just hope we get like a new zombie show that's really good every like 5 years. That would make me so happy forever. Like I don't think it'll ever get boring to me. I've been into zombie stuff. Like I was reading the Walking Dead comics like when I was like 10. Like it's been like 15 years. I just love that stuff.
I actually did enjoy The Walking Dead. Like, I would obviously buy the graphic novel compendiums where it's just like all the issues put into the whatever volume. And I actually did quite enjoy those. And I always thought they did a very good job. And I like the art and the whole direction. But I think that's also because I like reading. So for me, maybe it's more appealing than watching it on screen.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, I totally get it. Like,
yeah, totally different. Yeah, I think the Walking Dead comic was really interesting because, at least for me, like I felt like I was reading a book more than a comic. I don't know. Did you kind of get that? Like,
yes, there was
like
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. There was something kind of like survivor horror novel rather than, it wasn't even really graphic novel. It was much more. It was very immersive, and I think that's what people really loved about that. Like, that series, like as a comic or as a graphic novel. I think that people liked it. or that had a huge fandom. I mean, that's really what propelled the series, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was so good, and just I remember reading it, and like I read through it the first time, and I visualized stuff that wasn't on the page, like it wasn't on the pages, just extra, and I like would go back to it, and I was like, oh, that wasn't actually like shown in the comic, but I had this memory of one of the characters doing this. It was just a really, really cool, very well done comic book. I wanted to ask you less on visual stuff and game stuff, but what about writing? What kind of stuff do you read that you really enjoy reading?
So, as I am older than you, now in my 30s, I have actually not given up, but I read fiction a lot less.
Yeah.
Now, I still do read manga, and I still sometimes will read fiction, typically fantasy or science fiction, more science fiction. No,
Yeah.
that's actually not true. More fantasy, but
You
I
read, would you say historical stuff then, or
it's mostly like comparative religion or Buddhism stuff. That's obviously a lot of what I do, and
yeah.
I'm not a huge conspiracy, like, I trust me, I'm adjacent to all those people. I've done many conspiracy series on different shows, but I'm
Yeah.
not a particular like conspiracy researcher. I definitely take it more from a mythological angle, maybe a mythopoetic angle, where I look at like larger cycles of just kinds of like ideas that are cycling through at different periods of time in different kind of regions of the world. Mostly I look at the Himalayas and East Asia, but I do, that's really what I read, is like very nonfiction, sort of like maybe a little magic, a little like, like different, like I'm reading a book on for Gesser of Ling, who is like he was like a 6th century like Turkish Tibetan general who fought these Huns in Central Asia, and they were, well, as the story goes, they were sorcerers, so he had to fight them and he had to learn magic to do it. So, but he was really a warrior. So that's the kind of stuff I read. So it is very shonen kind of, but shonen in real life.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't like reading fiction. I think that's why, like with video games, I don't absorb any of the like lore writing. I never really have. I've always really liked like old like historical samurai stuff.
I do too. I'm a big Lone Wolf and Cub. I love Wicked Priest. I love Blind Bat. I love Lady Snowbird, or Snowblood, excuse me. I mean, there's so many series. I'm like a huge like Asian movie nerd. Like people know, I think, but people don't really know the extent of it. But I do have a series. Sorry
yeah,
about
you
that.
just like you just said like 4 books I have not heard of. So I'd like to know some of those. I'd like you to send me some stuff because
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely send you some. And I do have a series on Sunny Chiba. We haven't picked what films we're gonna do, but I have someone coming on from a Asian film podcast, and we're gonna do Sunny Chiba. And Sunny Chiba is famous for doing these kind of like very raw, very violent, but in a cool way, like in a stylistic way, not just overt violence like how movies are now. He does kind of like karate violence, and
Yeah.
like a lot of gangsters and like yakuza, but always like it's martial arts. So it has something a little different. It's not quite, it's not just a shoot 'em up. It's definitely have that kind of element of like the Bushido man on man, fighter on fighter kind of thing. It's not.
Is that historical or is it historical fiction?
So he does. It is kind of. So they're mostly from the 70s. They're usually based in the 70s, although he has several samurai series as well.
Yeah.
But he plays like a cop sometimes he plays like a yakuza, like a gangster. Sometimes he plays just like an everyman who gets caught in the crossfire. Like it's very like they're kind of they're templates, like they're very classic kind of like pulp templates. That's exactly what it is. And
Nice.
then he kind of does it, but then they're in Japan and they're in the 70s, so you have this kind of like stylistic elements with the music and the outfits and then the fighting. I think you would actually really enjoy it.
Please send me that. Yeah, please send me a link to some of that.
Yeah, I definitely will. And I have a Chinese background, so for me, I love like the sword fighters and like all the Shaw Brothers stuff from the 70s and the 80s, and I just find that all very fascinating, especially because I am a Buddhist, so like I look at it through like that more esoteric lens now.
Right on.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with like that stuff. I don't
Yeah.
really pay attention too much to like what's going on television. I mean, I do follow anime and manga. I mean, I'm really a classic manga person because I don't really like some of the. It gets a little weird for me. Like, I don't do the lolly stuff or any of that. Like, that's
Yeah.
way too weird for me. But like, I love Blade of the Immortal. I know people think that's lame, but for me, that's very classic, and I like it. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with anime. I've watched all the Miyazaki movies. I've watched a couple anime. I've watched Full Metal Alchemist, some of
Did you
that.
like it?
I liked it a lot. I stopped watching it at that dog girl thing. You know what I'm talking about?
That was really upsetting. And I actually
It-
also stopped watching it for like a year because
yeah,
of that exact thing.
that was the most fucked up thing ever. And I just don't. I just stopped there. um, but I liked Attack on Titan a lot. I have not
Yes.
finished it. Dragon Ball. I used to love Dragon Ball. Actually, my absolute favorite anime is Hunter x Hunter. Fucking love that one. I've watched
They
all.
did oh yeah, he did a great job on that. That's an amazing series, actually. Very violent, honestly, for like
That
shonen.
was amazing. I've never seen something like that with like the characters would be going along on this like adventure, this fantasy adventure, and then every obstacle was like a psychological test. Like, whoa, really? Like that? I'd never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's very cool because I think it actually like it reflects what we spoke about in the beginning is that like it's like a lighthearted like hero's journey. You've got this little dude from the forest who like doesn't really know human nature very well, and then he kind of gets thrown into this like whole like
Yeah,
crazy world of assassins and like and magic people and psychics, and
yeah.
it's very interesting. Yeah, I love that series
Yeah,
too.
it felt like I'm not sure that this is the point of that show or the intention, but it felt like to me the point of it was like, oh, like these characters instead of like, oh, you expect them to kind of like upgrade their abilities and get stronger at fighting or something throughout that's the classic like Naruto, Dragon Ball, whatever, like they get
Mhm.
stronger at fighting, but it was more like it was more about like making their mind like strong, and I thought that was really interesting. Do you think that was the point of that? I'm not sure, but that
No,
was.
I think you're totally right. I think that's what because people really, really have that. So when that series first came out in like 1999, it was like a huge cult classic in North America, but it was not like it didn't have the wide mainstream acceptance.
Right,
Not like a
right,
Naruto. It was not like a Naruto. People who knew about it, and it was cool for them. And I
right.
think that's exactly why. I think it was kind of like it had those elements of Evangelion where it's very psychological, very like kind of like you're working through all your bullshit, whatever. But then there's also the action element, which is what makes it very shonen, right? So it
Right.
combines those two things. I think that was a very good analysis. Is that to say, yes, it's really about them growing up. It's really like about this kind of like yeah, like it's like a novel of like coming of age, really. That's what
Right.
really that series is about, and I think that's why people really liked it rather than like a Naruto whose character doesn't really change from like the first episode to the last episode. Like he's just like a crazy overpowered kid the whole time.
Yeah, yeah. I still haven't read or watched Berserk. I know I need to watch that because
Oh,
everyone.
you know what?
So
I think you'll love that.
yeah, yeah.
Highly recommend that series.
Yeah, I know that Guts theme sounds good as fuck. So I will.
It is a really cool song. The Guts theme is an exceptionally good. It really is. And that I forget his name, but he was an amazing composer and he did so much like that all his music is like very cool, very experimental. He's kind of like the John Carpenter of anime, and he does like all this crazy synth work and like mixing, and it's just very cool.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. Like that song, yeah, the soundtrack of it, I've listened to it. It's amazing. I wanted to mention a book to you. I'm sure you've read it, and I'm trying to find. I'm gonna start talking about it with a quote from it. It was just an awesome quote. This is the first book that I've read. I've read it recently. I just read it for the first time recently. One of the first books that I've read 3 times. Like, I didn't move on to a next book. I read this. I think it was December last year, and since then I've read it 2 more times because it was just fucking amazing. So here's a quote from it. It's the Hagakure. If one sword is broken, he will strike with his hands. If his hands are cut off, he will press the enemy down with his shoulders. If his shoulders are cut away, he will bite through 10 or 15 enemy necks with his teeth. Courage is such a thing.
Yeah, I love that.
Dude, it's fucking badass. Awesome book. Have you read it?
I have not read it.
Amazing book. It was, I guess, written by a samurai whose master was like killed in front of him, and then he was ordered to, instead of commit seppuku, go and write and learn in the monastery for the rest of his life. So he basically just wrote about how not to be a coward for the rest of his life.
I mean, I love that. I think that's amazing. It actually reminds me of 2 anime. One is Rurouni Kenshin, and they also have live action films, which are quite good. And it also reminds me again to reference this Lone Wolf and Cub, and he actually says something very similar, and it's extremely violent. But and Berserk actually as well, because in Berserk, Guts gets very like hurt several times. And he even uses his teeth, I think, one time on one of the demons, and he kind of like rips its neck or throat out with his teeth, I believe.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, the historical stuff is really amazing. My next on my list is this book about a knight called his name is William Marshall, and the reason I'm gonna read about him is because he was riding into battle on horseback in full plate armor at the age of 70 years old.
You know, they just like different back then.
That's the thing. It was like that, and what's funny about like just okay, I'm reading that this guy did this. He did this crazy thing. He killed like 50 dudes and then lived to talk about it. Humans can do that. You know, it's just like, okay, let me read about the human that did that. Like, that's insane. And we have trouble like getting up for work in the morning. You know, we have trouble like fucking brushing our teeth. It's like, we're pathetic. And, you know, when you read this stuff, it's like, hey, maybe I can be a little less pathetic. Maybe I can do my work better. Be a more present person. I love old warrior stuff. That's just what I really love. And I love like books that are like maxims. Like, I know I'm gonna love. I read all of the Meditations, Marcus Aurelius book. I love that shit. You know, how to deal with pressure and stress and pain and conflict and obstacles. How to deal with that stuff. How to get through it and just be, you know, someone you can be proud of. I would love to put some of that somehow into FightDaily. Like, if any writing is going to be done for FightDaily, it is going to be like something like that. I would hope, if I can find a way to not make it fucking retarded. One video game that I got, I loved this one part of it. Was this Warhammer Vermintide game? I think that's what it's called, or Dark Tide. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm familiar with the Warhammer universe, but I'm not, like, you know, I'm sure you know this. There's a huge fandom for it, so I don't want to say anything and be like wrong.
Oh yeah. No, yeah, it's okay. It's Warhammer Dark Tide, and the coolest thing about it was the loading screens. So like, it's just a fucking like Left 4 Dead type game. You drop in with 3 people, you shoot a bunch of zombies and stuff. The loading screens are amazing because it just has a like list of quotes that it runs through, and it just like cycles through them, and it's just stuff like the emperor's will is unwavering, there's no fear in the emperor's light, truth is the emperor's will. Just like, whoa, this is badass. Like, that's fucking awesome. Like, it's trying to make you feel like you're like a crusader or something. That's awesome. That's so cool. Like that piece of writing made the game that wasn't super cool to me like really kind of immersive a little bit.
There's a classic element of this, and like there's a Sega game which you probably don't know because you're young, but it's called Ninja Gaiden, and
I love Ninja Gaiden.
Okay, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. So they would have, especially in the older version, they would have like the Musashi Miyamoto like 5 rings quotes all the time. They would talk.
Really?
Yeah, in the load screens and like in the dialogue sometimes.
No way. I did not know that. That's awesome. I played Ninja Gaiden 2.
Yes.
But
that's a
really?
it's a really cool series. I love that you brought up Marcus Aurelius. I'm a big Stoics nerd as well. Like I have a couple tattoos of Seneca, and I think I do have a Marcus Aurelius. I can't remember, but I love that.
Yeah, dude, awesome. I had no idea. No way.
Well, Buddhism is very close to Stoicism in some ways. It's about like, sort of being a better person, but in the present moment, like your day-to-day, moment-to-moment actions, sort of bringing that into self-control.
Yeah.
So there is a definite overlap, and there were a couple Stoics who had gone to, I think, Afghanistan, and like sort of like spoke with there was a monastery there when it was a Buddhist empire, and they spoke with some of the monks, and then they kind of went back to Rome and sort of wrote about it. And so I do think that, I don't know if it's like an influence, but there's definitely like a confluence of both of those things, and some of the ideas like are very similar, and I think other people find it somewhat similar as well.
Well, I'd like to read more about I haven't been able to find much like book type stuff on that Buddhist guy, Baron von Sternberg.
Oh yes, he's an very interesting figure.
I'd figure you'd like him, right?
Well, he's interesting because of his sort of like, I don't really do ideological politics per se. Like, I don't really like identify with any of those kinds of like historical factions. I'm kind of like, what are we going to do now? That's more my perspective.
The dude rode 7 times on horseback directly into heavy machine gun fire.
He was
7 times. It's insane.
He definitely embodied like an older warrior spirit. And I think, just to go back to something that you said that I thought was very astute, was that we lack sometimes meaning in our like in modernity, like in some of our like daily lives. And I think that's why a lot of people like sort of look for meaning in other things, or maybe aesthetic trappings. And I think that is why gaming is appealing in some ways, because, and I don't really buy the whole escapist argument per se, because I don't find gaming that escapist. I feel like it's a lot, especially for men, I think it's more problem solving. I think we're very like into that. I think we love problem solving, and obviously women can love problem solving too, but I think it's definitely skews male. So I think that's interesting.
Well, yeah, especially like I feel like the older I get, a game doesn't really feel relaxing at all. Like unless it's like, I don't know, like I don't know, chess can be kind of relaxing, but that's still work. That's still like thinking.
100%. And I agree with you. Gaming is not that relaxing. It's fun. Like, I have fun gaming, but it's not relaxing. I'm not like wound down. I'm probably wound up a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I definitely. I don't, especially like, people make fun of the survival games because it's like, oh, I'm gonna work, I'm gonna use my, I think that's hilarious. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna use my free time to gather stones in a fucking video game. Are you joking?
But you know what? I think what people like about that, again, I think there's something like parapolitical about that, where it gives them, again, meaning. It gives them like purpose. There is kind of like a directive, like, okay,
Yeah.
you gather this resource and then you produce something. And I think,
Yeah.
sometimes people lack that, like, especially if they have like a more, well, I'll just call like a bullshit kind of office job or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah,
They
that's definitely 100% why. Sorry if it's like lame to bring him up, but that's why that guy Sam Hyde's work is like done so well, because he kind of has an objective with his like comedy or whatever to like sort of express frustration with modernity, express a desire to kind of overcome it in a way. I think that's like the point of his MDE show, like undergirding all the just like trippy art and cool graphics and edgy comedy. There's like sort of I think people can sense that, like there's a trying to do something productive with it, like the opposite of subversive or something, like productively subversive.
That's the thing with subversive, like, material, is that, like, it depends on when it's produced. So something like that is more meaningful now and it's less subversive, but there's still an element of it being subversive because it is partly the mainstream. Like, there's a whole group of like people that are into that, like me, like I'm into that. And Sam Hyde definitely has had a resurgence because I keep seeing him on memes. So that must mean like like the Zoomers think he's cool again. So that means he's kind of cool again. So I think I think it depends. I think it depends on when things are produced. Like, if you live in a very debaucherous society, to then talk about like those things, like your frustrations, anger, and meaning making, I think that is kind of subversive, but it's subversive in like a more cosmic way. Like, you're talking about these greater themes of man, of humanity, of like what our potential is, what our future is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And trying to be positive about that
Exactly.
is
Exactly. White pill.
best thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I try and do, white pill, because like, I sometimes, I mean, I don't personally deal with a lot of dark material per se, but sometimes like mythology and religion can both have like very ferocious elements to it. But I always try and, I try and give it like a white pill after, like, at least at the end.
I know what you mean. Yeah, just there's no no religious anything that's like just pure positivity. There's like harsh punishments involved.
Hmm.
There's, the wrath of God. And yeah, you can focus on the loving side of that, but ultimately, yeah, there's burning in hell. There's I'm not sure what the Buddhist is. I'm sorry if this is like,
No, you
I
can
don't want to
ask
be offensive.
whatever.
Is
That's
the
totally
Buddhist
fine.
version like being reborn as like a cockroach? I'm not sure.
Well, I'll give you the very, very condensed version, is that basically we do have hells. We have 8 hot hells and 8 cold hells. And depending on your sect and what text you're talking about, but it's very text dependent in Buddhism. Like, people will say they're a Buddhist, but like, if you're not specifically referring to like a specific school or text, or it can be very just a nebulous kind of label. So
Yeah.
we do believe in hell. We do believe in reincarnation. We do believe in karma. Now, it's not exactly like if you're bad in this life, you'll be reborn as a cockroach. That's not really how it works. But you might be born as a human, but you will also like maybe have specific kinds of challenges that correlate to things you've done in your past life.
Okay.
So if you've committed certain sins or certain acts of violence, or okay, so I'll give an example. So someone who's like an inveterate liar, like if someone just cannot stop telling lies, so this is more innocuous per se, not like so violent, obviously. but maybe they will have like tongue cancer. That's kind of the idea in a
They'll-
future
they'll
life.
be right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So they're yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like they're reconciling past issues, trying to atone for that. And is that like is a reincarnation like a stage before being in a heaven or hell?
So one of the ways it's conceived of, now this is going to be, so I do have some like very excellent Buddhist scholar kind of listeners that will listen to this. So I don't want to say anything that's incorrect, but I will just say, for me, in my understanding of it, is that different stages of your consciousness will bring you to different places. So if you die with like at a specific stage of consciousness, then perhaps you will get reincarnated as a hungry ghost. But it's not the totality of who you are. Also, there's more to you than are just waking consciousness. We have other elements of us which are called the skandhas. I won't get too into it. It's very in metaphysics, but there's more elements to us than just our waking consciousness. So those things might get reborn into other kinds of planes of existence or beings or whatever it is. But generally, we consider being reborn as a human quite positive, because we kind of have a neutral, I mean, it's not 100% neutral, but we have a more neutral karmic relationship. So we're able to kind of live out our karmas through our human lives without necessarily incurring more negative karma. Now, of course, people obviously do incur negative karma through bad, or what we would call like sinful, whatever, actions. But you have a free will, you have choice. We can choose to do that, or we can choose to work on ourselves. So that's kind of why humans are kind of the pinnacle. Even like so Buddhism does believe in the other kind of like Vedic sort of heavens, but and like the gods that inhabit them, but those are not considered desirable rebirths, like to live in the godly heaven, because the gods are considered to use up their good karma instantly. Just through your rebirth as a god, you just use it up instantaneously. So
you're just gonna be assholes the rest of your time there.
Well, yeah, exactly. You start to incur negative karma and merit the minute you are reborn, depending on your actions, of course. But you are there's a weight, like a kind of negative weight that you start out with in the god realms. That's how it's thought of.
Now, you, I don't mean to be offensive at all. You sound like a white man. You sound like you are from America. What could have led you to sort of like, what was it, an experience that sort of led you to being like, oh yeah, okay, like the Buddhist sort of afterlife, like, oh yeah, reincarnation, oh yeah, like, what, how did that click in your mind? Was it an experience that you had?
Okay, so well, everybody already knows this, like in terms of if they've listened to the show before, just because I've done an episode about it. But my dad is from Indonesia, so I am half Chinese. So, but I am very much, and I've said this on someone else's show with DJ Poolhouse. I talked about this a little bit, how my politics, my like identity is very rooted in the kind of American experience. Like I think race is bullshit. I think identity is kind of bullshit. Like I don't adhere to any of that kind of like the new kind of like ways of thinking about it. Like I don't like any of that. I'm like, we're all much more similar than we're not. Now, is race real? Yeah, sure, it's real in some ways, okay? But really, I'm more interested in like, what does humanity do from here on out? Like, what choices do we make? How do we make our country better, or countries better? And like, how do we figure out how we work with each other? Because I'm not interested in the third world politics. I don't care. That's kind of where I come from. Like my stance is much more libertarian, if you want to call it, like give it an ideological label. I just don't care about any of that stuff. I don't think people should bring their grievances to the new world. I think that we should just embrace the identity of living in the new world and being American, and or whatever, Canadian or whatever it is. And then, just let go of the bullshit. That's my perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't really have any like racial viewpoints at all. Yeah, none, not at all. I mean, I grew up in like near LA. I was born in Riverside, so like Southern California, and just like, things were pretty racial there, but in a lighthearted way, not like taking it super seriously.
That's what I
But
mean. Like that. Like you can be, I think casual racism is hilarious personally. I think that there is even a political moment for like a little bit of racism or to be like spicy on Twitter. But I
yeah,
think in terms of like politics, like I don't really, it's not that I just don't really adhere to any of that, but it's not that I don't recognize that sometimes that has rhetorical power.
right.
But I think to answer your question, I know I'm sorry I went on for that was
Yeah.
tangent. But I think
No,
to answer your question is yeah, I've definitely had magical experiences. I've definitely had spiritual experiences, very profound ones. Um, to me, the Buddhist cosmology seems very it everything that I have experienced was described in text. Like it's very wisdom science oriented, so you can refer back to the text to see your experiences, and
yeah,
then
yeah,
so it's not just unverified personal gnosis, right? It's not just like a DMT trip. It's like, oh, okay, these things all make sense, like A, B, and C. So that's
yeah.
sort of, I guess, an answer.
Okay. Yeah, totally, totally. And did your dad ever talk to you about, or did any family at all ever talk to you about Buddhism when you were young?
Um, I mean, yes, yes, definitely, because like we would go sometimes to this Chinese Mahayana temple. I grew up in Toronto, so we would go to this place. It's in like North York or I can't remember, Markham, and
Yeah.
so there, they would just be like pretty, and there was like the bodhisattvas and stuff. But then as I kind of like got a little older, I kind of became very interested in like the Tibetan tantric Buddhism because it is very magical. Again, it's very like shonen
Yeah.
anime, and it has a lot of sorcery in it. It has, and I grew up like my mom is Catholic, and so we did grow up with that as well. So that is also very has elements of magic, has elements of like the supernatural, angels, all of that. So I think I was always very attracted to anything that had to do with that, and I always knew that there was more to the world. I think in my personal
Yeah.
experience than what was like the norm, people's perception. So I think that I looked for a way to explain it that seemed to make the most sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have a sense of like, like, would you say you have some sort of like, maybe like radar or something, like some sort of gauge where you're like, all right, you're Jin today, and you're going to the grocery store to go pick up some eggs and milk, and you get hit by a car and you're dead now, and you're Jin today, and you're what you've been doing for the past year, like where you're at now, like do you have some sort of radar for like where you would end up, you know like in the
No,
in the afterlife?
this is an amazing question. No one has ever asked me this, and I've done quite a few series on this subject on other people's shows. So for me, I do feel like I do kind of know I have a gauge of what is possible. But I will also say that in Buddhism, specifically Tantric and Tibetan Buddhism, there are many practices that are to purify your karma. So it's kind of like charging a phone, except that it takes a really
Yeah,
long time. But it is always possible to change your karma. It's always possible to change the outcome.
yeah,
So you have to put in the work. It's all about the
yeah.
work, all about
Is
the
it kind of
effort.
like I've read some of like I've listened to like some Hindu dudes talk about like, yeah, they've got like kind of like a list of things where they're like, all right, I'm gonna not lie at all. I'm gonna tell like the full truth for everything to everyone. Like and I'm also gonna do this. Like I'm gonna do these intentional like good things and intentionally not do these bad things. Like, and is that how you charge your karma?
It is a way to do that. Now, Tibetan Buddhism does use ritual practices, like not ritual, like in a like you're not like a witch in a coven. I mean, but you're basically by yourself. I mean, in the West, and you basically do daily practices, ritual practices, usually
Yeah,
mantra recitation. That's a big part of it. And like offering, you do like water offering, what's called sang offering, which is incense offering. Um, light offering, like butter lamps, and you do that kind of stuff, and then you have other practices depending on your level. So it's like kind of like a video game in a way, because you have to like level up your sort of not abilities, but it's more like the longer you do it and the longer you practice and the longer llamas see you practice, they will give you harder texts to practice. So you kind of move up the ladder is kind of how it is.
Okay.
So,
wow. So currently, do you attend like not a monastery? What would you call it?
It's like a Dharma center or temple, or I do live close-ish to a monastery. There's one, a famous one, a few hours away. I won't say which one, but it is pretty famous. And I don't, because this is what happened. This is just my experience. People can take of it what they want. But during the pandemic, when everything sort of locked down, see, I sort of was like, I was very anti mandates, anti-lockdowns. That's just my perspective. But because I'm more pro-freedom oriented, that's just my orientation, is to be like very freedom. But like we have personal choice and free will, so I feel like that we should just respect that. But so for me, I didn't want to wear a mask. I didn't want to go to a Dharma center. That was like, because we moved totally online. Like everything was online, services were online, empowerments empowerments are something you go to and you sit there and you receive a teaching, maybe from a lama of the center or of a visiting lama or visiting Rinpoche or whatever it is. So they will give you these kind of empowerments, and then through the empowerments you can practice higher texts.
Okay.
And so I saw it be that just like people's kind of brains fell apart during the pandemic. And I'm not making a judgment on them as people. I'm just saying if we have a whole belief in the afterlife, we have a whole belief in this life, I feel like you should just have a little more mental fortitude. And I saw people just like kind of like totally fall apart. And you're supposed to all be part of this spiritual community. That's a very important Buddhist concept, the Sangha, like the spiritual community that you belong to. And I just, it just changed people's personalities. So I just chose to just kind of go about it in a more old-fashioned way, which is you have like, okay, so for me, I have an empowerments folder from the last, I've been a practicing Buddhist for 20 years almost.
Wow. Okay.
So you go to the empowerments folder. It's all the times you've received ritual empowerments to do specific texts, specific readings, whatever it is. So then I started choosing ones. I was like, okay, what is going to help me figure out my life during this really tough time? Because, in Canada, we locked down for almost 2 years. So I had a lot of free time.
Yeah, that's great. That's crazy. I mean, I guess you kind of want to be locked down in Canada because it's so cold, right?
Well, we already are weird people because of our long winters, I think. So, I think that, but it just was, we had a lot of free time. So I just kind of like I did a whole reassessment. Like, how people kind of do that inventory of personal, like their goals or whatever during the lockdowns. So that's kind of what I did. I just did it more with a religious framework. And I said, okay, what are my goals what are my goals for right now? What are my goals for 2 years? What are my goals for 5 years, like spiritual tantra goals? And then, and so I kind of like reassessed what I wanted to be practicing, what I wanted to be doing. Did I like my behavior? Like at different times especially in my 20s, I was pretty wild. So I was like, I can definitely stand to do some like karma repair work or whatever. There's a lot of practices for that, or purification work, or like look at my conduct, like how you brought up, like how a lot of the Hindu guys will talk about, like right conduct is what we call it in Buddhism. So you will, you don't lie, you don't steal, you don't do specific acts of violence. Now that's not quite the same as like you don't, like you can still stand up for yourself. Like people take it very extreme, but you kind of inventory yourself and you kind of figure out where you want to go and who you want to really be and who you really are. I think that's a big part of Buddhism, is seeing who you really are outside of the trappings, or beneath all the trappings that you think you are, and you kind of strip it all away and then figure it out.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. It sounds like you have a pretty rigorous, in a good way, rigorous system for it. That's that sounds, just super, super healthy, super, super productive and good. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, you brought up Stoicism, and I feel like it's very similar in some ways. It's a lot of mental training. It's a lot of like, and I think it's important,
I think
we do what we can.
Right. Yeah. I think for me, like I read the samurai stuff to sort of, and the Stoicism stuff too, to sort of like figure out my own like Christianity. Like there's a lot of like when I read the Bible, when I read like the New Testament, there's a lot of just things that feel sort of like I'm not sure, like soft to read. Like there are things that feel very soft about Christianity, and it's hard to, maybe it's just because I'm a younger man and I have a lot of aggression or something, but I'm just like, there's just a little part in the back of my brain that's like, oh, this feels a little gay. And it's so, Christianity is so focused on love and just accepting God's grace, that it's just, you just have to accept it, and a lot of times it's pretty difficult to do. And the samurai stuff sort of like helps me sort of put into perspective like what I'm after. Like, I want a sense of like honor, I want like a sense of personal, like I want to know that I like put in work, not just, I want to know that I did like hard things for my God. I want to know that, I pushed myself, and it can be hard to sort of, there's a lot in the New Testament that's not about that. I remember, going to Sunday school and just like learning about like, being taught the portion of the Bible is just like saying like, oh, God gives you talents and you have to figure out what your talent is. And I was like, and you have to ask. I was talking to my youth pastor about it over and over again, like, what do I want to do? And he's like, well, God will tell you what you want to do. And I just felt, and he was like saying, I was like, I'm really good at writing, but God was like telling me to draw. And I was like, okay. And so for the most part, like my drawing is my faith. Like if I'm performing well in drawing, it's because I'm taking care of myself, I'm taking care of my family, I'm doing the things I should be doing. If I'm not doing well in drawing, it's because I'm, just being a fucking degenerate. I start drinking a little bit. I start falling into some bad habits. Just personal bad habits. And the samurai stuff definitely kind of, is a little more harsh than just, just accept the love of Jesus Christ. And that's sort of the kick in the ass I feel like I need sometimes. That is, it's difficult. It's difficult. I'm a little too restless for the Bible sometimes.
I think that's good. I think that to have the tension with your own faith, like it's not like it's easy. I don't like find it easy every day to get up and do it at like 5 a.m. That's not like, I have blocks. Sometimes I want to look at my phone and play on Twitter. Sometimes that seems more fun. Is that more productive? Absolutely not. But this is the truth. And I think that there's also an idea, and like I'm very like Christian friendly because I grew up Catholic, like I said, and also like I didn't grow up with like that kind of staid Catholicism that people know. I grew up with more of a mystical Catholicism where like the world is like full of wonderment, and like also Jesus can be very warrior Christ. Like that's a very like the older
like like the infancy Gospel of Thomas. He's like fucking. He's like kicking diseased boys that he hates. He's like, get the hell out. He's slaying dragons. He's like being a badass.
And I also think like the Stoics, like a lot of the Stoics, like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, they're all considered to be humanist saints in the Catholic Church. So I think that we've always like there's an appreciation for kind of that self-control.
Really? I didn't know that. The self-control and also like finding like beauty in actual existence, like what exists at now and not the afterlife. Like trying to make your life worthwhile on the world seems to be a pretty noble thing to do, right?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. I someone in like some Christian forum, I was like, they were like debating this Stoic line that everyone's heard of, what is it? The best strive for greatness, the masses glut themselves like cattle. And they were debating that. And I know it's like obvious with that, but they were just sort of talking about it in a way that I just didn't stumble on thinking about it, which was just that, like, they were debating like, oh, well, should we follow God and try to get into the afterlife and put our stake in the afterlife and not the earth, or should we try to do good on earth? And it was just that old debate. And it was like, they were just saying, well, the quote is just saying that on earth, the best people who do the most good are the people generally who try to strive for glory, and not the people who just eat and die. Right?
No, 100%. I think this is
kind of debating like selfishness too. Like, it's kind of selfish to pursue, a career super hard or money super hard or whatever.
I mean, if you're asking my opinion, I personally think that life is a theurgic process, that is part of like how we get to God is through the challenges that we have and how we overcome them. And challenges are not necessarily external, they're also like how we perceive things, how we think of things, like exactly like what you said, like falling in bad habits. Like that is a challenge of itself, but that's an internal challenge against yourself. So and those are the biggest challenges. But I also think that for men, I think that we also look for external challenges to like, do we have a rival to overcome? Like, I know I was very competitive in like university and high school and like grades wise, not like physically, but I always would like, it was always be a challenge, but my biggest kind of foe was always myself, because I knew I could do well. Like I knew I could always score like an A, maybe not the highest in the grade in the class, but I could always do well. But then maybe I made mistakes here and there, like, academic ones where I'd be like, oh, like I can improve that. I can do so much better than that. So I feel like that is kind of the challenge that, is set before us, is like, how can we improve? How can we do better? And if that is a career, then that's fine. If that is money, then that's fine. It can't be the totality of it.
Right. Yeah. It's very, it was very, very nice talking to you about this. I don't want to, I'm not a very good religious person. I don't know very much. I don't want to start talking about shit I don't know at all.
No, I think you asked me excellent questions. I mean, I'm shocked that this is where it went, but I'm really pleasantly surprised. I'm like so glad that you came on the show, that we were able to do this. And you're welcome back anytime, honestly, Piglice. So why don't you plug all your stuff and then we can kind of close it out, because we went for quite a while here.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah. No, this was very, very nice. At Piglice Draws on Twitter, no spaces or anything, just Piglice Draws. Twitter is really the only thing I want to plug. Yep. If you look up just Piglice, I think there's like my Instagram and Newgrounds account, but I don't really post there very much. So yeah, just Twitter.
It'll all be in the show notes regardless. And I appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. Awesome questions. Everybody go support him, support his project. And thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk to you again.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Peace. Thank you. Have a good one.
Hey, this is Jin the Ninja, and if you enjoyed the show, you can check out more episodes on Spotify and Anchor, and you can check me out on Twitter at Wukong Reborn, WUKONG Reborn, and on Instagram at Threshold Saints. And there's a link tree in the show notes, so you can check out all my appearances and my shows to date.